Hello everyone, this is Shadow Aleph, and this is going to be a review for Tales of Rebirth for the PlayStation 2. This game was released on the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation Portable, and it was a game that was never localized, it was never brought out of Japan, and is a game that you will have to play through in Japanese if you want to play through it. Now this is a new type of review that I'm doing where it's a different style from most reviews. It's not about how much you're going to like or not like the game. It's about me talking about the game, what the game plays like, and whether or not you're going to like it. I'm not some fanboy who's going to completely say the game is 100% great and just not admit any flaws about the game, but at the same time, I'm not someone ridiculous who's going to say, oh, the water doesn't look that great in the graphics, so the entire game is a 4 out of 10. This is a new type of review style where it's not about scores, it's about whether or not this game is going to appeal to you and what the game plays like. So Tales of Rebirth, it is a game that is part of the Tales of series. It has gotten a few games in the series that have been localized here in the US and Europe and a few other parts of the world. And it is primarily a Japanese developed RPG series, and it's an action RPG series where outside of the battles, you go around throughout dungeons and towns, and in the towns you usually see story events, and you buy equipment for your characters, and they get more powerful. Kind of like Final Fantasy, if you've played that series, it's a lot like that. You go to a town, you get better equipment for your characters, you maybe rest at the end so they recover their health and their magic points and whatnot, and then you see the story event, and you go off to the next dungeon. And in the dungeon, you go throughout the dungeon from the start of it to the finish. There's a save point here and there along the way, and there's a few puzzles that you'll have to solve. And then you get to the end of the dungeon, and usually it ends with a boss fight. Now, I said that Tales of Rebirth from the Tales of series is an action RPG series. Well, that is true. Tales of Rebirth, the battles are completely random, so you walk around for a little while, and after you walk around in the area that's like a dungeon where you can fight enemies and whatnot, you get into a battle. And the battles in the game, it's not like a traditional turn-based RPG where the entire battle is you choose commands and then you take turns and whatnot. Tales of Rebirth, the battle system is an action RPG battle system where you run around, you slash enemies, you attack them, you use special attacks, you link physical attacks and special attacks together to do really cool combos, and there's other mechanics of the battle system that are kind of complex and interesting. And every Tales game always innovates and brings something new, even if only minor, to the battle system, and Tales of Rebirth is certainly no exception. And Tales fans will know this very well. Tales of Rebirth and the battles, and in most Tales games, the battles take place on a 2D plane, which would mean that you can go left and right, but you can't go up and down. It's not on the 3D plane. However, most games, while most 2D games of the Tales series, unlike the 3D ones where they started introducing 3D combat where you can move in any direction and whatnot, one of the big innovations in this game was that most of the 2D ones you can move from left to right, and that's pretty much it, the entire battle. Well, it's mostly the same in Tales of Rebirth, but the big thing in the battles is that you can change what plane of dimension you want to be on. There's 3 lines in battles, 3 different planes of dimensions, and you can switch between them in battles. So you can have the enemy on the center line, the center plane of dimension, and you can go on the top one, run behind them, switch back to the middle one, and start attacking the enemy in the middle and flank them from behind. Or maybe you see one of your AI-controlled allies going to attack enemy, and you want to get to the other side of the enemy and attack them at the same time as your other ally is. And that really adds a lot of strategy to the battles of the game. And it makes the battle system of Tales of Rebirth a lot of fun. It makes it strategic. Another aspect of the battle system is that there is something called the force gauge, which basically the battle system in Tales of Rebirth, it's not like traditional Tales games or Final Fantasy games where you have like magic points and then use a skill or a magic spell, and then the skill or magic spell uses up a certain amount of points. Instead, every character gets what's called a force cube, and you can assign about 4 to 6 skills to it, each one corresponding to a different direction, much like other Tales games, but you don't use points to cast the spells or use the abilities. Instead, how it works out is basically what you do is you assign the abilities, and when you're fighting, you'll see by the character portraits, you'll see 4 little diamonds, and when they fill up with green completely, when they completely turn green, you can use one of your abilities, and each time you use an ability, one of those 4 lighted up diamonds that are completely green go away, and that's how many times you can use your spells or abilities. And you can use them more and more as that fills up. And like I said, the battle system of the game, it's an action RPG, so you run around, and if an enemy attacks you, you guard and you slash them and you use combos and whatnot, and you try to do as much damage as possible to the enemies while guarding against their attacks to not take as much damage or avoid them entirely. You can switch between the different lines in the battle, the different planes of dimension, to get behind enemies or to get a positional advantage on enemies. And there's just a lot of depth to the battle system, and it's a very unique mechanic to the Tales of series. Outside of the battles, you have a lot of puzzles. It's a fairly linear game for the most part, but when you exit a dungeon, there's a rogue map in between the areas, kind of like the older Tales games and the Final Fantasy games where you would exit a town, and as you exit the town, there's a rogue map linking the places together, and you travel across the rogue map on foot, or you get a vehicle such as a boat, or maybe fly like on a bird or something to get to different places. And Tales of Rebirth is no different in that regard. You have many different forms of transportation that you get over the game, and in between traveling to different areas, you sometimes travel on foot, you sometimes travel by boat, and there's a few other ways you travel that I won't spoil. So that's what the gameplay of the game is about like. And if you're really into action RPGs, or that sounds kind of interesting, or you don't mind playing an imported RPG, which this game is pretty easy to get through even though it's in completely Japanese. I don't know Japanese at all almost, and I just used a walkthrough for this game the entire way through, and I had almost no problems playing it from start to finish. It was very easy to get through the entire game. The game is fairly challenging. It's one of the more challenging Tales of games. The normal battles can definitely put up a fight. You're not going to be able to breeze through them even on the easiest difficulty, unlike some other games of the series. Another thing that really returns, that's a great thing, is the grade shop in this game. You do well in battles, and what you can unlock is grade from doing so. If you do bad in battles, you lose grade, and what grade can be used for is the grade shop. You unlock it upon completing the game. You do a new game plus playthrough and get something called the grade shop. All the grade you accumulated in a previous save file can be spent on different bonuses such as double EXP, double money from battles, the ability to start with having all the party members in the game right from the beginning of the game before they all join you. Many different cool bonuses that adds a ton of replay value to the game. The game also has an optional dungeon if you want to do that. In general, the game is just loaded with replay value. It's a lot of fun, but you have to really be into that action RPG type of game. And as said, the game is very import friendly. It's not hard to play through. If you use a walkthrough, you will get through the game with almost no problem. However, if you're not really into action RPGs, you're not into the Tales series, or the language barrier just sounds completely unappealing to you, then you might not like the game too much, and that's going to really be a deal breaker for some people. I'm assuming, though, if you have watched this, that you're probably either a big Tales of fan who's interested in this game, or someone who might be a moderately big fan of the series who's interested in this game because they heard so much praise for it. And I'm just trying to explain what this game plays like for different people. Now, that's about it for the gameplay. I'm going to go and cover the story of the game. The story of the game basically is about the main character named Vague, who starts off and he's pretty much sealed himself away in this area after he failed to protect one of his friends who was very close to him. A disaster happened and she got frozen in ice. Basically, Vague, the main character, has this power known as the Force of Ice, and it allows him to freeze different objects, freeze people, freeze monsters, and just manipulate ice and use that power to his advantage, or in some cases to not his advantage. And there's different people throughout the world of the game that Tales of Rebirth takes place in, that world that the whole game takes place in, who have different force powers. And Vague, the main character, is the ability to control ice, and he meets another person at the beginning of the game named Mao. And Mao says, hey, I'm looking for other force users. We could really use your help. We're trying to look into something that's going on. Why don't you join us? And after him and Vague battle it out, Vague joins him, and he meets up with all the other characters in the game, and they start going on a journey. as they go along the journey, there's a group of people in the game who are sort of like these beast type of creatures known as Gajamas, and the game, the story in it, has a big theme about racism and discrimination towards different types of people and different like races and whatnot. And the Gajama are one of the races in the game, along with the Humas, who are like pure humans, you know, kind of like real life, just human people. And then we have the Gajamas, and then you have half humans and half Gajamas. And there's a lot of racism and a lot of discrimination, and the story is all about that. And it's all about, like, you know, tackling the themes of why are people being racist, why are people discriminating against different people for really dumb reasons, and it really tackles the theme of racism. The game also has some really well developed characters, along with its interesting main theme that the story focuses on regarding racism. And basically what happens is that Veg and his allies basically get attacked by this group of knights who are like this elite group of knights that serve the queen, because basically at the beginning of the game, King Radris, or King Ladris, depending on if you want to use the English or Japanese pronunciation of his name, dies, and his daughter, Queen Agarte, is the successor to him. And after she becomes the successor, a lot of bizarre things start happening, and those elite group of knights start attacking Gajamas, and your main characters are wondering why the kingdom has started doing such bizarre things, and they travel to the kingdom to figure out what's going on. And of course, the story has a lot of plot twists, not only regarding the main cast of the main story, but the antagonists as well. And there's just a lot of plot twists throughout this game, and the characters have very well developed backstories. And I will say, I didn't understand Japanese, but on YouTube there are people who have translated the scenes in the game bit by bit. You know, every line of dialogue that the characters say in the scenes, they have translated. And I would play through the game, get to a scene, and look at the video and see what the characters were saying, and then analyze the story from there. And I was able to completely understand the story from the beginning of the game to the end. And I must say, this is one of the better storylines of the series, in my opinion. And if that sounds interesting to you, the whole fact that this game's story deals with racism and how people discriminate against other people and why they do it and how people can put an end to it, if those kinds of themes in the story sound interesting to you, then you might want to check out this game for sure, and you'll probably like the story. And if it doesn't really sound interesting to you, and you're thinking, oh, well, maybe it's overdone or something, then it might bug you. Last, I just want to touch on the music and the graphics. The music in the game, there's a lot of ambient music in the game. The game doesn't have like a very, I would say, modern soundtrack. There's no like heavy metal soundtrack songs or like techno songs. It's a lot of really relaxing ambient music, but I think that Tales of Rebirth, the dungeon themes in particular, and the city themes are really good. The role map themes are orchestrated in the game, and they're pretty good as well. They really make you feel like you're going on an adventure when you listen to them. And the battle themes are pretty good too. It kind of sounds like the music in general is kind of from like an older timeline of games, you know, back in the Genesis and Super Nintendo era. But it's a really great soundtrack in my opinion, and I think it's very good. As you can mostly see from the video and the gameplay, that providing, it's a 2D game. It's not like 3D like Tales of Symphonia or 3D games in like the PlayStation 2 era, etc. so forth. It's a 2D game, purely 2D, and if you've played Tales of Destiny, the director's got very similar style of graphics to that game. So overall, I really enjoyed Tales of Rebirth, and there's going to be some things overall that may or may not make the game appeal to you. If you're a really big Tales fan, have you kind of been on the fence about this game because you've been wondering if it's challenging to play through because you might not know Japanese? It's not. It's very simple to play through this game if you use a walkthrough, and I have very little problems getting through it. If the main story about racism and the fact that, you know, you have all these people discriminating against these Gajamas, and the game tackles why people discriminate against other people like that, and how it's really stupid that people do that, and how all of these individual main characters go and face their own inner demons and develop over this story, then you might be interested in the story. Another thing too is if the battle system, where you have the 3 different planes of dimension and you can switch between them in the battles to get positional and tactical advantages over your enemy, sounds interesting, then you're definitely going to probably like the gameplay of this game. It's one of the more innovative Tales games battle systems, and it's a lot of fun to play. Overall, That's going to about cover it for my Tales of Rebirth review. If you really enjoyed this review, please tell other people about it. Please like it, and just please share it with other people. And I hope to hear what your opinion is on the game. Please post in the comments if you agree with me that this is a good game or you're interested in it. Or if you have any questions about the game or the video and the review, feel free to post it in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Once again, thank you all very much, and thank you for listening.